Once again, when it comes to the LNU, the SCU, and the CZU Lightning Complex wildfires, there have been some big updates in the last day, and there's some important things to talk about in the weather forecast, so I really just want to dive straight in. We'll first take a look at what the smoke looks like from space, and I would actually say this is the best the smoke has looked really since these fires started. There were some favorable firefighting conditions last night, so you can see the plume coming off of Sonoma, Napa, the SCU Complex, the CZU Complex, isn't nearly as bad as it has looked the last few days. Now the first fire I want to dive into is the LNU Lightning Complex, because there were some big updates with this yesterday. Arguably the biggest area of concern right now with this one is actually the east side of this west fire. As you can see, there's some hot spots pushing closer to Healdsburg. Now, I will say this is not the confirmed fire perimeter. This is what hotspots are being picked up by a satellite in space. So go to CAL FIRE's website for the confirmed perimeter. This is, again, just satellite data. There is, however, some great news when it comes to the south end of this fire. You can remember from my video a couple days ago, we were talking about how the fire was getting closer and closer to Vacaville and Fairfield, and even moving into the city in some places. Well, CAL FIRE said they have reached some great containment on the southern end, as well as on the west side. They said they have a great dozer line really dug all the way around this west side here. Now again, I will say, don't take my word for it. If you live in these areas, check the CAL FIRE website for the most recent evacuations. On the east side here, if I zoom out, you'll notice there are some pretty big hotspots on this east side, and what CAL FIRE did last night was basically fight fire with fire. When the temperatures were low, the winds were low, relative humidity was pretty high, they actually burnt out a bunch of this vegetation here so that by the time the fire gets to it, there won't be any more fuel to really fuel the fire further. So that's some pretty cool firefighting strategy, and again, if you're a member of CAL FIRE watching this, thank you for all the work you are doing right now. So when it comes to the cold hard facts with the LNU Lightning Complex, it has now reached 314,000 acres, making it the second largest wildfire in the history of California. The good news is it's up to 15% containment, which is by far the best we've seen since this fire started, and it's likely due to those favorable conditions last night. I say this in every video, but if your location is on this list, CAL FIRE says, please just evacuate the area because it makes their job easier. Now going down to the damages and losses, we're up to 560 structures destroyed. This is up from yesterday. We now officially have 4 injuries and 4 fatalities. There were 3 in Napa County and 1 in Solano. So if you or any of your friends or family have been affected by this wildfire, my thoughts and prayers go out to you. When it comes to the personnel, there are now over 1,400 people on this fire, 13 crews. We got 11 helicopters, 194 engines, 36 dozers, 35 water tenders, and I've even heard we have some huge aircraft on this now as well. One thing I will say, I just said that this has now become the second largest wildfire in the history of California. The first largest was the Mendocino Complex, and on that fire, we had about 5,000 people working on it. So to put that in comparison, there's 1,400 people on this, and really the reason for that is because there's so many fires burning all around California, it's spreading the resources thin. There are 13,000 firefighters battling 24 fires all across California. So normally we could maybe have 5,000 people on this, but unfortunately the conditions in the state are just not favorable to firefighting right now. Now there's some big things to talk about in the forecast, and the main reason for that is this red flag warning. This basically means there's going to be high temperatures, high winds, and low relative humidity, which is basically the exact thing you do not want when it comes to fire danger. You can see there's also a chance of thunderstorms, so we're going to dive into this too. Really, the reason for that comes back to Hurricane Genevieve. And if you remember, when these fires first started last Sunday, it was because there was a tropical storm off of Mexico, and it basically funneled in a bunch of moisture, a bunch of energy right into California, created a bunch of thunderstorms, which sparked hundreds of lightning fires, pretty much from Southern California to the Oregon border. Now, I will say this doesn't look as bad as that storm that sparked all these fires in the first place, but it is an area of concern. Now, when we look at the water vapor here, you can actually see how this works. You got the main storm here, and then it's streaming this water vapor into California, and that's unfortunately going to create some thunderstorms. So this is the red flag warning. Basically, it goes from the North Bay all the way to Central California, and there's a few reasons this is a big problem. One problem is the gusty, erratic winds. That's going to make firefighting extremely difficult because it's going to be hard to create a strategy when you don't know what the wind direction is. It can also pick up embers or burning branches, spot them elsewhere, and create new fires. The other aspect of this is the lightning. That's what started all these fires in the first place, and unfortunately, that could be something we have to worry about looking at this forecast. And I know what you're thinking, thunderstorm, maybe we'll get some rain. Unfortunately, the rain forecast is not looking that good for this one. There might be a little bit in some places, but not enough to really put these fires out. And you can actually see that right here, 0.06 inches. That's not nearly enough to really do any damage to these fires. So the big area of concern when it comes to the forecast for Vacaville is going to be around 5 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. You can see the temperatures are up into the mid-90s. We're going to have wind gusts in 21 miles per hour. Relative humidity is pretty low. The reason low humidity is a bad thing really comes back to vegetation. If the air is dry, then all the moisture evaporates out of the plants. And if you've ever tried to start a campfire with a moist log or a dry log, I think it makes sense which one is a lot easier to burn and which one's going to burn hotter. So when you see the high temps, high winds, low humidity, this is going to be something to worry about. The good news with it is over the overnight hours, both really tonight and tomorrow, it's going to be dropping into the mid to high 60s. Winds won't be as bad, not nearly as bad as the 21 mile per hour gusts, and humidity will be reaching higher levels than we've seen. Again, the real thing to worry about though is this thunder down here. We're going to have to keep a close eye on what that is doing. So the next fire I want to talk about is the SCU lightning complex, because this had some big updates in the last day as well. You can see it's still officially two separate fires, although I'd imagine by the next time they update this map, it will have merged into one. The good news on this is the wind direction. And that's actually the good news on the LNU fires as well. If you look at the wind direction, it's actually switched to a more southerly direction. So if you were up in Vacaville and Fairfield, that's going to be great news for you, because if the wind is blowing from the south, that's going to blow the fire this way. So that's real good news for Vacaville and Fairfield. And the wind direction is also going to help this fire. It's predominantly coming from the west, which will blow it away from these cities right here. So again, that red flag warning, that's the big thing to worry about with the SCU complex. And if we look at the kind of the cold hard facts with this one as well, you can see it's up to 290,000 acres. This one's now officially the third largest wildfire in the history of California. It's up to 10% containment. And the last I heard from CAL FIRE, they said they're really throwing a lot of resources at this. So things hopefully will be looking up as long as those thunderstorms don't start more fires around the area. Again, we got over 1,000 personnel, 23 crews, 4 helicopters, 118 engines, 30 dozers, and 37 water tenders. So taking a look at the forecast in the San Jose area that's going to be affected by the SCU fire, I would say the forecast is looking pretty good with the exception of the whole thunder aspect. High temperatures are way lower than what we've seen really throughout the last week. Remember, we had triple digits Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, now temperatures are around the mid 80s. You can see winds hopefully won't be going above 10 miles per hour. That could change once these thunderstorms start rolling in. Who knows what kind of winds we'll get if those happen. When it comes to humidity, though, this is looking pretty good. especially in the overnight hours when it reaches the high 70s. And then that's an area of concern, but overall, that's pretty good compared to what we have had in the past. So the next one I want to talk about is going to be the CZU fire. And honestly, in my opinion, this is actually the one that I feel best about right now. You can see there are still some hotspots around Ben Lomond and Scotts Valley, so that is definitely our major area of concern. I know CAL FIRE is working very hard to contain this fire, and looking at the forecast for this one, again, they got that red flag warning, chance of some thunderstorms, but overall, I would say the forecast is looking pretty good when it comes to this fire. You can see the temperatures are way down. We had the triple digits. Now it's 80s, even into the 70s on Saturday, so that's great news. Shows winds aren't really supposed to get above 5 miles per hour, and the predominant wind direction is from the south. So if you're looking at Ben Lomond and Scotts Valley, if the wind is blowing straight from the south, that's going to be good for you, especially here in Scotts Valley, versus what we have had throughout the history of this fire when it was blowing from the northwest, basically just blowing this fire straight into Ben Lomond and Scotts Valley. So I would say wind direction wise, that is some great news. And really when it comes to humidity too, they're going to have some great opportunities to get some containment on this in the overnight hours. As you can see, humidity is up into the 90s. So really when it comes to tonight and tomorrow night, there's going to be a great chance to get control over this fire as temperatures are down finally into the 50s, winds are almost zero, and humidity is up to 90. So that is great news. But again, the big thing we have to worry about is kind of the wild card of what's going to happen with these thunderstorms that have been caused by Hurricane Genevieve. I will be keeping you guys updated as this situation progresses, and good luck, and my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who has had friends or family or lives in these affected regions. Thanks for watching.